Okay, so we're going to move swiftly on to our next sector of debate, and this is the big dog. It is indeed the union president. Only one candidate this year, which is a surprise to many, and we're going to have a little look at his manifesto points. Here he is, it's Josh Hurrell for union president.
Hi, I'm Josh Hurrell. I'm running to be your union president. I'm currently a third year English and Drama undergraduate, and I have spent 3 years on Hall Committee working up from Rag Rep to Hall Chair. The way I plan to run a strong union is through the continuation and progression of strong campaigns that the union is already running. By starting fresh every year, there's no way the union can improve or progress any further, and any new campaigns that we bring in will be focusing on areas that the union currently isn't addressing. My 3 main manifesto points are every student matters. That's about making sure that everyone leaves Loughborough saying that they had at least a good time or the best time of their life. Engaging town students, which is about taking the union to town and making sure that they're happy instead of making them come to us. And finally, it's about extending LSU's reach and using programme reps, union councillors, the executive hall chairs to make sure that we are speaking to as many students and seeing what they want in our union. So Josh, do it and vote Josh Hurrell for your union president.
Here he is, please welcome Josh Hurrell. Okay, hello Mr. Hurrell, how are we doing?
Yeah, all right.
Feeling good? We're okay, we've got mics now, it's all right, we're back on track. Miss Reid, hello, thank you for joining us on the floor. So, this time last year, Josh is obviously running for your position. It was you and Ali who were going for union president. What was it like around this time last year?
It's definitely a scary time, and a time you're desperate to put across what you'd contribute to the job and say as much as you possibly can without sounding like you've got word vomit. I think is the big pressure, but I'd just say to all the candidates just to enjoy it and use the opportunity to really sell yourself.
Glad you did it?
Oh, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go straight to the floor. Mr. Linsky, who have we got for Josh?
Alicia Myers, are you in the room at all? Hello, Alicia. Question for Josh?
I was just wondering what you'd say to people who say that the exec aren't really that important and they actually act as puppets to more professional full-time staff in the union. How would you respond to those claims?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Please go. We're going to have to swap mics again.
Okay, that's all right. So basically, I'd say that's quite a ridiculous claim, especially within our union. You see a lot of the ideas come from students, like I've seen union staff say, for example, Georgie's Health and Wellbeing Week, that came from Georgie and started with Georgie, and the union staff helped develop it, and that's their position. But to not have an exec there, ex-students representing the students, is something that's ridiculous. It shouldn't be run by full-time staff. It is definitely a students' union that is run by its students.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I think this exec have definitely, you can back me up here, Ellie, I think they've definitely tried to get their faces on campus a bit more. Have you felt that's something that is important for the next executive to carry on?
Definitely. I think it's a hard task getting yourself out there. You're representing such a huge amount of students, and we had a campaign dedicated to doing that solely, and we've put a lot of energy and time into doing that. To say that we're puppets for the permanent staff, actually we went on a unions tour right at the beginning to get some ideas from other unions, and that was something that we found was unique to Loughborough, that we absolutely were not like that, and that lots of other institutions did run like that and had each member had a staff person who dealt with complaints and emails. We're the people that do that. We get the complaints, we reply to them, we go on campus, we run the events, we have the ideas, we're on the interview panels for the new members of staff. Absolutely everything that you see here, we've had some input, and a lot of the time it's only happened because we've had the input. So I would agree with what Josh said. I think it's entirely untrue.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Josh, do you think it's going to be a really difficult task next year, making sure that whether you're a fresher, you're a second year, you're a third year, you're a master's, do you think it's going to be difficult continuing the legacy that this executive have tried to put in place?
Well, basically, like a lot of what my manifesto is based on is continuing, as a continuation. I think the only way we can make our union stronger, we can build like a strong union, is to continue and improve on things that are already in place. We have the resources to be able to carry on something that's started now. We've got the groundwork put in. So things like the We Are Here campaign, we can now just make it bigger, we can make it better. And because once we get those campaigns there and a ground base, then there's no way that they can't go bigger and they can't go stronger, and that is something that I plan to do massively this year.
Brilliant. Mr. Constantinou, you've been away for a year and you've come back. How have you felt coming back into the bubble? This executive have forced their way in and made sure that people know who they are and that they're there for them.
Well, yes, you're right. I have spent a year out, but I came back, and the only reason I think I have as much contact as I've had with the exec, which hasn't been extensive, is because I'm also on committee for LSUTV. I went out into the real world, and in my personal opinion, I believe that it's important to apply for what I would call real jobs after graduation and not a sabbatical, but obviously people have different ideas. And if you will, I actually have a question for Josh. I mean, you mentioned for the last 3 years we've had, pretty much fluffy presidential manifestos, and this is no different. Now, Josh, you've got no candidates going against you. You've got an easy run. Ron is still a candidate, though, so how are you going to make sure you're held accountable when there's very little to hold you account to?
Okay, so John thinks that there's not been much difference between manifestos of presidents across the board. How do you think you differ, and how are you going to secure those votes?
Basically, I've tried to be less fluffy, I hope. But basically, what I do plan to do is that what I've been trying to do this week, especially, is getting out and talking to people and seeing from today, I went around Bilmo and seeing what people want, which is a big thing on my manifesto, and then hopefully starting to channel these ideas that we've got now, that people are coming to me with now, into the next. If I get elected, hopefully, into the next 6 months, and then we've got a foundation that we can build on and start from September next year or July next year, actually this year, and so that's something that I plan on doing, and that's how I hope my manifesto isn't too fluffy, in that expanding the We Are Here campaign to bigger and to better, and to making sure that we are going out and talking to everyone. I think that's how I can hope to progress.
John, surely a union president can do no more than go out and make sure that they're asking the right questions and making sure that they're doing the things that the people on campus want. Can Josh do any more than that in his manifesto?
Well, I mean, a presidential position in the higher world of politics and government, then a president is a much kind of a name to a face type of showing up and showing support, and that's very much part and parcel of the job. I believe that with student government or governance, a president, yes, you need to practice those roles if you're going to apply them to potentially the similar roles out in the real world, but this is still a student forum. You need to show some real technical knowledge, because if you don't do it now, when are you going to?
I think the last point of my manifesto about currently the current effort to drive forward with this push that the union are currently doing in making sure that it's university protocol to advise the students' union or ask advice from the students' union when the university plans to do something that majorly affects the students. That is something that I plan on really pushing forward. If it's not completed this year, then it'll be hopefully it'll be completed by the end of my tenure. That is something I really will really drive forward. But then if that is completed this year, then I'm sure there will be something that we can drive forward with the university again, because the institution itself isn't perfect. They don't necessarily always look out for the students' best needs, so it'll be something that I will look to be going and fighting for. There will be something that I will need to be focusing my attention on more.
So if you're saying that you do something that you implement, and you say if it doesn't get finished by the end of the year, you hope it gets finished the next year, you just cross your fingers. I mean, what are you going to do to get
Well,
it
it's
implemented?
not that I hope it won't get finished. It's not entirely up to me. It's a very bureaucratic system, the university. Huh?
You would be the president of it?
No, I wouldn't be president of the university. I'd be president of the union.
Sorry, apologies, my mistake.
So that's why. But that is why. That is something. So from a union point of view, I would drive it forward, and I would drive it forward so much that by the end of my tenure, it should be finished, and I hope it will be. But as I say, we have to work at the university. That is a pace of going at the university's pace. They can fight us as much as we can, but my idea will be to fight back as much as I can, so we get further through that process.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, what I'd like to do at this point, we're talking about executive perhaps not having the impact on campus that they do. We've had words such as fluffy being thrown around the room. Would anybody in the audience like to pose a question to Josh or anybody on the debate floor in response to this? Any keen beans in the audience? No, that's okay. Warm yourselves up. Joe, I think we've got a tweet in over there. What have we got?
Yeah, interesting stuff there from John Constantinou. He doesn't see this one as a given despite being an uncontested election, obviously, for Josh Hurrell. We do have another question, I believe, from Elizabeth Rawlinson. Is she around anywhere? Is that Liz? Hi, do you remember your question that you sent in to us? I think so. Okay, have you got a question for Josh?
What inspired you to actually go for this role as a whole, like taking into consideration your whole life? Like, what inspires you to take on president?
It basically stems from being, when I was hall chair, in the first week in Freshers, a girl left my hall after 2 days because she had the worst time of her life because she hated the drinking, she hated it, it was like completely freaked out, went home, cried, went home that night, went home crying, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that not everyone enjoys the same experiences I do, not everyone has the same experiences that I do. And there is a majority of the students that do, but there are the few that don't. And I feel that as president, I can make a difference to those few. Like student welfare is quite important to me. And I feel that as a president, I can guide the executive to making sure that they're covering all of their sections to make sure that we are catering for as many people as possible. I mean, it is impossible to please every single person, but as long as we're trying our best to please as many as we can, then that's what inspired me to do it.
Okay, is that all right for you over there? All good, all answered? Wonderful. Ellie, how would you have felt last year if you were uncontested? Do you think it's a given?
No, I don't think it is. I sometimes think to be contested gives you more of an opportunity to prove yourself. It's quite hard actually when you're uncontested. I know Ali Cole, shout out to you, had a few uncontested committee positions and always said he relished the opportunity to prove himself over somebody else. But I don't think you can act as if you've got the job. I think actually, Ron, as we said, Ron is a valid candidate and you've actually got to go and prove yourself. And perhaps some people will be expecting more from you because they want to see, you've got no actual competition. So they want to see you produce some more stuff, be active, and they still want to see you campaigning hard because we don't want the worst to happen.
Jago, I believe the Epping released an article claiming that, it might have been yourself, so I'm not too sure, sorry, claiming that the uncontested positions were a given, and I think the words Josh Hurrell will be your next union president were written down. Are you fighting Josh's corner?
I think Josh is an exceptionally good union president candidate, and I think when it comes to Ron, how long has it been since Ron has defeated an uncontested position? Certainly no candidates that anyone remembers in this room. My question for Josh would be next year, it's been a very interesting couple of years, in fact, with topics from module feedback to parking, where the union hasn't seen eye to eye with the university. Would you be willing to fall out with the university if it meant a gain for students? And where does the balance lie between really sort of speaking up for students and also keeping the university on side?
Well, the university is obviously a very big part of, it's the biggest relationship with the Students' Union along with the community. So falling out with them completely to the point where there is unbuildable bridges is just as damaging to the students as the gain that you might get back from, so say we got car parking fees down to £10 a year, but if that has completely burnt the bridges with the university, it's going to take a long time for the next couple of executives to build the trust back. So there is only so far you can go until you do crush those bridges, and I hope to push them as far as I can, but obviously I don't want to ruin the excellent relationship that the Students' Union currently has with this university, because the better the relationship, the more they'll listen to you, and they don't give you the cold shoulder.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Josh. Some whoops from the crowd there. Big smile on his face. Okay, to round up this debate, I think, Mr. Linsky, have you got a tweet for us from someone at home?
We have had a tweet, yeah. James Spock on Twitter has tweeted us a question for Josh. He asks, does Josh think it's an indictment of the LSU executive that only one person wants to be union president?
No, I don't. I think it's possibly a variation of many things, like in the lead up to the elections. As people have said, it's not, a lot of people don't see it as the ultimate grad job. It's not the most glamorous wage packet. And I have always believed that only a certain few people do run for the executive, because of the passion that they have for the Loughborough experience, they've thrown themselves into it themselves, and so basically there is a certain type of person that has always run for it. Whether this is a fault of the current election system, I don't know, but they have tried to make the changes to change that this year. But I think Ellie's done a fantastic job, and if anybody doesn't want to follow in her footsteps, it's not a fault of the executive, it's more a fault of possibly the current system, like the current atmosphere that Loughborough has.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I think the crowd are really behind Mr. Hurrell in his campaign, so that's really good to see. We're going to wrap this debate up now, and I'd like to thank Mr. Hurrell and Ms. Reid very much for being on the debate floor. Please give them a round of applause, ladies and gents.